All right, welcome everybody. We are here with Picklebilly Presents, and while Lynn Cherry is normally the one conducting the interview, today the shoe is on the other foot, and so we get to find out a little bit more about your background and about what you do. So welcome, and
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's great to be here.
yes, I thought we'd start off. I think most people know about Pickleball Fire Podcast. However, our sport is growing so rapidly. I think we now have over 4 million people who are playing pickleball. And so, there might just be people who are stumbling across this and who do not know. And even if you do know, I think we're going to cover some things that people can now learn more about you and your background. But I thought we'd start off by showing a picture of the website where you have your podcast. And I'm looking here at all of these. I mean, look at all of this work you do. How to start a pickleball club, hitting slice shots, going all in for pickleball, how vision training can improve your game, pickleball game. So has doing these interviews, has it improved your own pickleball game?
I have to say, I have learned so much from the pros and instructors I interview. And typically, if I've got something going on in my game, I get to ask the pros a question. And it's not the same certainly as private lessons in person or a clinic, but it has been great because I can ask some questions that I have personally, and I really hope that it helps other players because I'm just a recreational player. I'm not a tournament player. I just play for fun. I like the socialness. I like to compete a bit as long as my knee kind of decides that it doesn't act up, which it does a lot of times. So yeah, it's been a great opportunity to ask a lot of questions.
Yeah. And so I appreciate you interviewing me. We did that on October 14th. And during our talk, we were talking about Dane Gingrich, and I saw him posting that he was going to be on your show yesterday. So how did it go?
It went great. And it's really funny because Dane was actually one of the first people I reached out to when I started the Pickleball Fire podcast because we had a mutual friend who actually I met who is a pickleball player, but she also was in a podcast group that I was a part of. And she kind of connected us, and it was right around the holidays, and we had something scheduled on the calendar, and then there just ended up being a conflict. So it's been almost a year later I get Dane on, and I said to him, I said, I'm really glad that it's taken a while to connect because he would have been on really early. I hadn't necessarily kind of found my groove as a podcaster or as an interviewer. And honestly, I didn't know a lot about him, certainly at that time. So I thought it was a great interview yesterday with him. It won't be out for a few weeks, but we talked about a lot of stuff that's probably going to be a little bit different for people to hear. And I don't really want to give any
Yeah.
spoilers, but he
Yeah.
has such an interesting story aside from pickleball and aside from him being kind of a mental toughness coach. So sometimes on the podcast, I do like to kind of tell a story. But there's always, anytime I interview a pro like that, we talked a lot about the mental game. So it is still a very instructional episode.
I cannot wait to hear it. I am, really excited about that. And so I was going to ask you, so is there somebody who you have interviewed that really kind of took you by surprise, either maybe in what they said or what happened?
Yes, and I'm not going to name names here.
Yeah.
Let me just say it was a podcast a while ago, and I was interviewing one of the top senior pro men's players.
But approximately what date was it? No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
You can't say
I
that.
don't know. Yeah,
Uh,
go ahead. Yeah, okay.
all right. So, anyways, actually was talking about, just and actually I've had a couple people on the podcast who are, very well established players, good players, and talking about just kind of lacking confidence. One of them certainly said he kind of lacked confidence, certainly as an athlete. And not to give too much away, but yeah, I mean, certainly in
Yeah,
talking with Dane yesterday, that's one of the areas that he really focuses on in what he teaches and when he's playing. And
yeah.
so I just kind of I felt like I kind of came full circle because he was giving some good advice on really how to have belief in yourself.
Well, I think, with your background in sports psychology, so let's talk about that a little bit, about confidence. And so what is the key to that? How do you gain confidence?
That's a good question, and, I think that's why I actually went through and, got a degree in sports psychology because as a high school athlete, as a college athlete, I definitely had a lot of issues with being confident on the court. Really kinda interesting because in my personal life and my business life, it's pretty much the opposite. But, the thing that I found is really a couple things. Certainly, repetition is a key. I am certainly somebody who I really enjoy practicing. And when I played, high level racquetball years ago, I probably spent more time practicing than playing. And certainly, I've kind of brought that into pickleball too, where a lot of times I'll go out by myself. I've got my lobster pickleball machine, practice my third shot drops or volleys or what have you. It's so easy to do, but definitely the repetition really helps with the confidence. But I have to say too is that I think really kind of controlling and not controlling, but being learning what to say to yourself can also help your confidence.
Yeah.
Growing up, I came from, my parents were great. And, I was generally had a good life growing up, but the household was just kind of negative. My dad was actually very, very negative, not towards me necessarily, but so that was kind of a real part of my thought process, and that I would kind of get down on myself. And it wasn't because my parents were getting down on me, but I was just always very, very hard on myself. At a very young age, I was definitely a perfectionist. And, I would actually get migraines as like a 7-year-old. So I learned pretty quickly not to be a perfectionist, but it took me, until I was a, young adult where I really started to learn how to work on that self-talk and what I say to myself. So same thing on a pickleball court, in terms of your confidence, I'm not going to sit there and, berate myself for missing a shot. I'm going to just kind of, move on to the next point and, try and be, positive, for
Yeah.
myself and for my partner.
Yeah. So confidence then, would you say, is learning about the self-talk that's going to build yourself up rather than tear yourself down? And that's just to kind of summarize.
Yeah, that and practice, the repetition of a shot and shots
Yeah.
will definitely help your game because you feel like you've been there, done that. So I think those are both aspects of really improving that part of your game.
Yeah. I know. I was just talking with my friend Skip this morning, and we have a friend who, when he misses a shot, he's like, "Oh gosh, you did it again." And he brings up all this stuff. And, when you watch Ben Johns and he hits it in the net and he hits it out and he makes mistakes, but what does he do? It's like he's unflappable. Like, oh, okay, let's just go back on to the next point. And not just Ben Johns, but it seems like a lot of the pros will just move on. So are you able to do that then? So when you're on the court and you make a mistake,
Yeah, that was
you just
definitely
move on.
something I learned, in my college years to just, if something happens, something doesn't go well, that's okay. You can even, I'm generally not like that, but you can't even react to it as long as you know, you might react a little bit, but then you absolutely positively have to be ready for the next point. At this point in my career, I'm not even gonna
Yeah.
react to it.
Yeah. We watched a volleyball game at the college level last night. We were watching the women play. And after every point, whether they did well or not, they all got in the middle and they kind of huddled and they were like just super positive. And I thought, okay. And it was really interesting too, watching the game. It really reminded me of pickleball for some reason. Now, you're a big volleyball player too.
Well, in my younger years, but let me just tag on to what you had to say in
Yeah.
terms of the volleyball team, coming together after each point. I actually had the opportunity to see Dane and I think it was Dave Weinbach play
Oh,
doubles.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I believe that was the Florida tournament in Orlando. They did that, a lot. I mean, they came together every point.
Yeah. And so are you now, how about you with your partner when you play?
I mostly play drop in. And so
Yeah.
every game that you're playing with somebody different. And so since, I could do that, but I don't really think about it in drop in. I think if I was, playing in a tournament or had a regular partner,
Yeah.
that would certainly make sense. But again, I'm just playing more socially. So yeah, at this point, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. In my recent tournament, we were playing for the gold medal match and we were getting beaten handily and we were very frustrated. We were starting to get irritated and it was just kind of devolving. And during the break, my partner said, okay, we're going to go in and we're going to tap paddles. We're just going to have a big smile, even though we don't really feel it, but we're just going to have a big smile. And believe it or not, I think it unnerved our opponents because we seemed so relaxed and happy, like almost like we had a plan, which we really didn't. But I think maybe it relaxed us as well. And we ended up winning. And that kind of turned it around. So,
Well, congratulations on the gold medal.
yes, yes. Um, so, so I was just going to ask you, so your background is quite a few sports. I mean, you said volleyball, basketball, racquetball.
Yeah, it's I played volleyball, basketball, and softball kind of growing up. And interestingly enough, I probably never told this story before. I had a congenital heart defect when I was born, and I'm old enough so that was a very serious condition. And even though I was diagnosed at 6 months, they didn't actually do the surgery until I was 3 years old. So, so since it was very new and they didn't really know how kids were going to do with open heart surgery, my parents did not let me play organized sports until I was in junior high. And so I had a good friend who was a really great athlete. She went on to play Division I volleyball. And so I think the first thing I did was I played softball on a team with her. And then I also played basketball and volleyball. And ironically, I probably could have gone and played Division III volleyball, but I was much more into academics. So I ended up going to a school, and oddly enough, they were just beginning a program. It was the volleyball coach, saw me walking through the cafeteria with volleyball shoes on. So he stops me and says, "Hey, you want to join the team?"
Oh, he
Yeah.
recognized your shoes
Yep.
as
Yep.
volleyball shoes.
Yep. So yeah. So actually, I did play a year of college volleyball and actually also college basketball. And
Okay,
then
wait. Since your parents didn't allow you to do sports when you were in junior high, did you just like, oh, I'm going now? I mean, were you really excited
oh
and
yeah.
delighted to be doing this?
Well, it was the craziest thing, honestly, because I played football in the street. It wasn't tackle, obviously, with the guys out in front of my house all the time. And so, to me, it was like, well, and at school, I was always playing handball, tetherball,
Right.
basketball. So it was kind of ridiculous that my parents didn't allow me to play organized sports because I was playing disorganized sports where I think, it wasn't really monitored, because a lot of times it was at recess or it's out in front of the house, and my mom certainly isn't out there, watching. So yeah, it was yeah, so obviously I was ecstatic once I got to play.
So you were still getting your skills because I was thinking like if you weren't doing any sports, your body and your muscle coordination, I would think, would be undeveloped at that age, but you just jumped right in it. So you were getting your training, and your skill development through these other things like handball and football and
Yeah, and I would
yeah.
even just take a tennis racket and bounce a ball on it, like hundreds and hundreds of times. I mean, I would just, sit there and bounce, 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 bounce. So because I wasn't, didn't want my parents to, think I wasn't abiding by what they wanted. But yeah, I was lucky I to develop the eye hand coordination early. And even now, that's actually probably one of the best parts about my pickleball game is I have very fast hands.
Oh, okay. So what do you attribute fast hands to? I've got my ideas, but I would love to hear your ideas about this. Fast hands, because everyone wants that. So what is the root of it? If you dig down, what brings fast hands to pickleball?
It's really all about eye-hand coordination. I mean, it's definitely vision. And when I was going through graduate school, we had access to reaction time equipment at the time because this was wasn't way before, but it was kind of a little bit before you could monitor that really well with a computer. And yeah, so I got to measure my time and I got to see it against other people because I was probably teaching a class at that time, teaching the undergrads. And I knew from that I did have fast reaction time. Now obviously, you know slowed down a lot, but still pretty fast. But it's really about vision, tracking the ball. It's about reading your opponent. It's just kind of a whole set of skills which actually can be learned. And I should say I had on his name, sorry, his name is escaping me at the moment, but I had on
Oh, I
the
saw it
jet, yeah,
about
the
using your
gentleman from,
eyes.
yeah, the gentleman
Yes.
from Vision Edge, where
Yes.
they actually started out doing vision training for professional baseball players. And so it's something you can
Oh,
learn and improve on.
yeah. Yes. Oh my God. Wouldn't that be amazing? Uh,
Yeah, actually, I know they're gonna have I don't know when this is gonna be, out, but I
mm,
know that they're having a Black Friday, Thanksgiving sale,
mm.
and, yeah, I was actually even thinking about signing up because I've never had the opportunity to, like, through the computer, work on something like that. So I thought that was really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Because when you're playing, um, well, do you see the whole court? Because I think, you're looking at the ball, you're looking at your opponent, but then you also need to see the entire court and the spaces and where there's space available to hit the ball. So your eyes are really tracking. It's like multitasking with your vision.
Yeah, it's as an athlete, you're going to have a broad focus at times, and then you're going to have a very narrow focus, of course, like, when you're in a fast rally at the net. But then, yes, like you said, you get that you need that broader focus to know where people are on the court. But then to some extent too, you probably know where the holes are even without really looking at your opponents, assuming they're fairly skilled, they're going to be kind of in a position that they should be in.
Yeah. So are you saying that you just naturally see the holes of where to place the ball?
No, well, I think my skill is much more narrow focused, where you get in that fast hands rally at the net. And so I react quickly to be able to, pick up shots and get to balls that most people wouldn't expect, especially somebody of my age and kind of, not being like not being really tall and not having a huge wingspan. So I think
Right.
I think I'm not as good at seeing the holes, but I'm better at just
Yeah.
kind of that more narrow focus.
I love it. So are you saying they underestimate you when you first come on the court?
I think that there's always an evaluation when you've got a new player and they come onto the court.
Yeah.
I have no
Yeah.
no doubt that people overestimate and underestimate new players, and
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
certainly been on both sides of that.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're saying though that if they wing the ball at you, you're ready for it.
Most of the time, yeah. But I have to say, coming from that racquetball background, in those days playing racquetball, I always wore eye guards, and actually I am now going to be pulling them out of my old stuff because
Yeah.
there have been a lot of people recently, that I play with who have, got hit in the eye.
Yeah.
And one of the things too that I had Joe Frasca on the Pickleball Fire podcast really early on, and he was working with a company, and they were doing some studies, and what they found is that you tend to flinch more if you don't wear eye protection. So if you want to be faster at the net, that's actually another way to make sure that you're reacting very quickly in a positive way as opposed to flinching, because
Yeah.
that kind of takes time, and then you also probably don't see the ball as well. So wearing eye guards can help you at the net clearly too.
Yeah. When you say eye guards, are these ones that have lenses, or are they just eye guards that protect your, so that nothing can, get past them to hurt your eye?
They would be like have a plastic lens.
They would have a lens. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that,
years ago in
yeah.
racquetball, they had kind of the other thing that you were describing where there was no lens in it, but nowadays I think all eye guards actually have a lens.
Yeah. So is what you're doing now, is this something that would ever have visualized yourself doing, or was it just a series of events that led you here? Does it seem surprising to you what you're doing, or does it seem like
Ye
a natural evolution?
It is, actually kind of interesting. I feel like I'm kind of going full circle because when I was at school, going through college and going through graduate school, I was interested in sports psychology. My bachelor's degree was in journalism, so I was a sports writer. And then basically after I finished my graduate studies, I had the opportunity to do something what I was really interested in, kind of doing health type research, which I did and actually still do. But yeah, so the pickleball thing, started about 3 years ago after I found the sport. And I'm like, after I found about a month after I found the game, I'm like, you know, I'm going to put up a website. I've never really had a content website, and I love this game. So I just want to kind of share what I'm learning and share information.
Yeah.
And had the website for a couple of years. And, out of the pandemic, I was stuck inside in Connecticut, what, about this time. Yeah, about a month ago, a month and a year and a month ago, and determined that I need something to do. So that's actually how the podcast started. And then what I realized with the podcast is I'm like, I have so much content. I'm doing 2 podcasts a week,
Yeah.
talking to an instructor or a pro on Mondays. And then Thursdays, I usually talk to somebody from the industry. And I
Mhm.
have all this content. So that's when I decided to use my journalism background, started writing articles, and developed the Pickleball Fire magazine, which is I've got working on, I guess, the 6th issue, and just recently became the official magazine of the International Federation of Pickleball.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is huge. And the magazine is really beautiful. The photographs, the information, the way it's organized. Uh, don't tell me this is your solo effort, all of that magazine.
Except for I've picked up a few writers along the way, but yes, that is a solo effort other than the writers. And I've got some great writers, ML Johnson, Randy Caddish, Tony Roy from We
Oh
Are
yeah.
Pickleball is
Yeah.
also writing an article. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've been really lucky to have some really interesting writers, and kind of looking at things a little bit differently than I do, a little bit different writing styles, and it's been an amazing ride. But yeah, it's again, I've kind of just gone full circle with really what I did in for many years, with the journalism, and just so yeah, I feel like I'm going back full circle.
Yeah. So I know I get the magazine coming to my inbox So for people who are watching this and they would like to subscribe to the magazine, how do they do that?
Just go to pickleballfire.com/magazine. And
Okay.
just to let everybody know, too, we've got a article in there that's coming out in the next couple weeks in the magazine about hosted housing.
Oh, can't wait for that one. That's awesome. Yeah. It which is really so exciting, and it's just growing wonderfully, and I really just love the connections that it's providing for people. I just always ask, everybody, please share your stories, because there's just it's just so heartening when I hear about that. So, and thank you for doing the article about it. So I think the
Yeah,
more information, yeah.
it's a great program, and so I'm so
Yeah.
happy to be able to support it and give you more exposure.
Yeah, thank you. Um, and then I want to wrap up here. I want to ask you about, you said you do research into health issues, or can you explain that? You mentioned I didn't really understand what you meant by that.
I'm I'm a data scientist, and most of my work has been in the healthcare area. And so I'm working like for a company right now where we do what is called kind of real world research. And so there's a number of different disease states where that we do research on, from obesity to IBS, and lots of different therapeutic areas. And yeah, it's kind of health outcomes research. So it's based on people's medical information that comes through a physician. And actually, I is the company also does clinical trials, but they're kind of moving more into just the real world setting, and really trying to help people have better health outcomes by studying the data, essentially, is what it is.
I love it. So a friend of mine's involved in a company where they're able to analyze blood samples, and like for people who have cancer, but they can then define the exact type of cancer that it is. And so it's not just one fell swoop treatment. It's, oh, okay, you've got prostate cancer, but you've got this specific, like maybe there's 8 types and yours is type 3, which responds best to this treatment. So it's like using data
Mhm.
to really pinpoint specifics. Is that similar to what you're
Yeah, I
doing?
mean, a little bit. That's they're definitely using data to help improve cancer outcomes. And yeah, I mean, mine isn't necessarily as specific as that, but the idea is certainly similar.
Yeah. And so do you how about any heart or hopeful news on the area of joints? Because people playing pickleball, it's just really impactful on your knees and your hips and shoulders, and so we could use some, anything that's exciting in that area that you've heard about that works. And
Well, when I run across something, I will certainly let you know. But
yeah.
at this point, I'm not aware that it's one of our therapeutic areas. But if I come across something, I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah. I know Simone Jardim is going through PRP, the plasma replacement, where they take your blood and then they separate the platelets, and I know a lot of people are going through that and have had successful results. So,
Oh, interesting. I'm not aware of that. What are the benefits of that?
well, the idea is that rather than getting an arthroscopy on your knee, you get these plasma injections, and it's supposed to help regenerate the tissue. Um, And I just know personally, my husband had it. He was going to get knee surgery, and he did get PRP injections in both knees, and he's now able to do everything again. He's fine.
Oh,
Um,
that's good to hear. Yeah, I've got some knee issues, and if they could regrow that ACL that I tore about 7, 8 years ago, I'd be really happy.
yes. All right. And then is there Now, who do you need to have on your show who you just really want to have on and you have not had yet?
Actually, I would really like to have on Lucy Kovalova, and I haven't even reached out to her, but there's been a number of different pros that I've talked to on the podcast who actually she introduced them to pickleball. And in actually the episode that's coming out Monday, the person who was introduced, Thadia Locke, didn't even know who she was. She had no idea at the time when she got to play with her
Oh,
who she was.
okay. All right. Well,
So,
we'll be looking for, yeah.
yeah, listen to that episode because it's really interesting, and she's got a great story. Plus, we covered some good instructional topics too.
All right. Well, let's everybody put the word out to Lucy. Tell her she needs to get on to Pickleball Fire Podcast. And I thank you. Your shows are so professional. They're so lovely. You always have the links when I go through the website, and after seeing one. So it's really lovely. And I really appreciate what you're doing. I know a lot of people really enjoy what you're doing. So thank you.
Well, thank you for being on. I really appreciate being on your show.
Yep. Okay. I will have you have a good one, Lynn, and maybe we can play pickleball someday.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.